Hey everybody, it's Tay from Royce, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a UI input remapper for the user to change the controls in your game. Let's get started. First, let's create a user interface, and I'm going to add a couple of child nodes here. I'm going to add a panel container, and this is going to contain all our UI nodes. And I'm going to add a HBox container to keep everything aligned horizontally. I'm going to add two VBox containers, and in the first VBox container, I'm going to add a label. I'm going to give it some text of something like attack. And I'm going to increase the size of our font so that it's easily readable. Second VBox container, I'm going to add a button. I'm going to give it the text doesn't really matter. I'm just going to do ASDF for now. It doesn't really matter. It'll be overrid later. The user will never see that. And I'm going to increase the font size as well. Let's save that. Now let's add a script to our control node. So let's attach a script, and I'm just going to call this UI manager, and we're just going to leave it as .gd. Now we're going to need a couple global variables. First thing we're going to need is a signal. The signal is going to be used to update our button text when our input is changed. So signal update button, and we're going to give it a string and an action name. Now we're going to need a bool to modify our controls. So var modify control of type bool equals false. Now we're going to need a string to tell us what action to modify. Actions are what Godot calls which control is which. So var modify action of type string, and it's going to have no value for now. And the final one is going to be a dictionary. Control data equals, and we're going to leave it empty. This is essentially going to contain all our changed controls, and this is going to be used for saving and loading later. Now let's create an input function. So func underscore input. You can just hit tab. And now we're going to need to check if a couple of things are what we want to continue to assign our controls. So if, for example, modify control, the variable we made earlier, is false, or if event is type of input event mouse motion, because then it'll just assign it if the user moves their mouse even a little bit, and we don't really want that. Most games do not use that. Or input map, or not input map dot has action of modify control. And what do we want to do? If these return true, we just want to return. And I realize I passed in the wrong thing here. Modify action. Now we know we want to be in this function, so we can do a couple changes. So now we can delete all the previous input maps in our user controls because we don't want the user to have multiple controls. We don't want to keep adding on to it. We want to reset this. So input map dot action erase events for erasing everything. Modify action. Now we're going to add in a new event. So input map dot action add event. Now we've got to pass in our modify action string and our event. If all you want to do is modify controls when the user has it on, this is all you're going to need. Now let's create a new function, and I'm going to put it down here to update our controls to allow us to set everything. So this will be called from the button. So func update control, and we're going to take in a parameter of new action string. And I think I've already called something new action, so newer action. That's good enough. All we want to do here is modify action equals newer action, and modify control equals true. No, modify control equals true. Oh, and since we have to set it here, we're going to have to set modify control to false here. Perfect. Let's save everything. And now let's go into our project and project settings, and let's put our script in globals. So globals are a way of having the singleton pattern. It's a way of being able to access things from different scripts, and it will be available for everyone. So let's add our UI manager script and just add. Perfect. And now we don't need to attach to control anymore. Let's attach a script to our button. So attach script, and I'm just going to call this input remapper button .gd. Now we're going to have one global variable at export, so we can set it in the inspector. Var action name, and it's going to be of type string. Now let's create a function. Function on button click takes in no parameters of type void. What do we want to do? We want to access our UI manager. So UI manager dot update control, the function we made earlier, and we're going to pass in our action name. And so now we just need our button to do this if we pressed it. So pressed dot connect update, or no, on button clicked. Now we need to subscribe ourselves. Let's save this. We need to subscribe ourselves to the signal we made earlier. So we can go back in and type UI manager dot update button, the signal, dot connect, and we're going to put in a function that we haven't made yet. Receive new text data. Let's go ahead and create that function. So function receive new text data. It's going to take in 2 parameters, a new action name, or I'm just I'll call it act name of type string, and a new button name, also of type string. And we're just going to check if our act name is our action name. We want to make sure we're the right button that we're asking to be modified. So if act name does not equal action name, return. If that's false, text equals new button text, new button name. And I forgot the colon here. Let's save this and go back in and emit our signal here. So update button dot emit. We're going to pass in our modify action and our event dot as text. Save this. Now let's actually create an action in Godot. So let's go into project settings and input map. Let's create a new action, and I'm going to call this action attack for now. Attack, add, give it an action of like D, and let's set our action name here to attack. I don't think I capitalized. I need to confirm. I didn't. Okay, good. Now let's run our scene. So now if I click the button and click something like F, it'll set it to a new action. Now we want our button to take in an action name automatically, because right now it just has our placeholder text. So let's go back into our button script and let's just do this in ready. Also, we're never going to need process. So let's get the events of our input map. So var get events equals input map dot action get events and of our action name. Now we're gonna check if we actually have events to receive. So if get events equals null, or get events dot size equals 0. What we want to do, you know the drill by now. We just want to return. So if that's false, now we could just set our text equals get events and on position 0 dot as text. Let's save that and let's check if our button automatically has our input. Yep, there we go. So now we've created our input updating thing. Now we want to be able to save it. And saving's going to be probably the hardest part. Let's create a new script. We're going to create a new script, and I'm just going to call this script save load. And before we do anything with this script, I'm going to go into project settings and put our script into globals. Add. Perfect. Let's modify our script. We're not going to need the process or the ready functions. So now let's create a function, and we're going to call it save data. We're going to take in a string, and we're going to call it path. We're going to take in another string that we're going to call file name, and we're going to take in yet another string called data, and it's going to be of type void. So now we actually have to save our file. So var save file equals file access dot open path plus file name file access dot write. And now we're just going to do save file dot store Pascal string, and we're going to pass in our data. That's all we're going to need for the save data function. Now we're going to have to create another function to load the data. The function load data. This is going to take in, again, another path of type string and a file name, also of type string. And we now need to check if our path exists. So if file access dot file exists, path plus file name, return null. We don't want to do anything if we're trying to load a file that doesn't exist. Now we can actually load our file. So var return data equals load file dot get Pascal string. Oh wait, now we actually want to load our file. So var load file. Oh, I'm still in the if statement. Var load file equals file access dot open. Pass in the path plus file name And we're just going to want to read this. We don't need to write anything. .read. File access .read. Now we want to get our return data. Var return data equals load file .get Pascal string. Return all the data in that file, and then we're going to return our return data to the person who called us. And I realize I mistyped file name here. Perfect. Now, we actually want to be able to parse our data. So I've said it before, we're going to be saving and loading a dictionary. So we need to be able to parse the data back into a format that we can actually use. So func parse JSON data, and we're going to take in data as a string. So we're going to do var JSON equals JSON, all caps, .new. Var air equals JSON.parse the data string that we gave it. So if our air equals okay, var data received equals JSON.data. And if our type of data received is not a dictionary, if type of data received equals type dictionary, we want to return our data. Return data received. That's going to return our parse data. If this is not true, else print bad data. That's all we're going to need into our save load script. Now let's go ahead and save and load our file. Let's go back into our input remapper script. Oh, sorry, UI manager script. And in the ready function, we're going to need to do a couple things. So let's try and load our JSON data right now. So var JSON data equals save load, the script we made earlier, .load data. And I'm just going to pass in the user entry and a file name, and I'm just going to call our file control.json. So now if our JSON data is null, say if the file doesn't exist or it's empty, we don't want to do anything with it. We just want to return. If not, we want control data, the dictionary we made before, equals save load dot parse. Did I name it wrong? I didn't. Parse JSON data. And we're just going to pass in our JSON data that we got. I realized that I didn't type save load correctly. Okay. Now let's create a function to actually save our data. So func save data. We're going to take in no parameters. And we're just going to do save load dot save data. Now we're going to pass in user, where we want to save it, our file name, controls.json, and we need to now stringify our JSON dictionary. So json.stringify control data. Now we actually need to set our control data have values. So back into our input event function, we can just set our control data, and add our position modify action equals var toString event. And if you're wondering why I'm doing this, it's because input events aren't serializable, meaning they don't exactly go into JSON, into files well. So this is a way we're going to work around getting it into our files. Now let's actually load our data. Let's delete the function, or the process function, because we're not going to need it. And we're going to create a new function, load control data. We're going to take in no parameters. So now we're going to loop through every key in our function. So for key in control data, we're going to get our value, var value equals string to var. So we're now parsing our value back, and we're going to pass in our control data e, and we need to parse this as an input event. Now we just need to set our controls again. So if not input map dot has action key return. If not, let's erase our input map again. Action erase events. Pass in our key. In input map dot action add events. Key value. There we go. Now let's actually create a button to save our game. So let's go back into our scene. And I'm going to add a new button. And I'm going to detach this script from it. And I'm just going to call this button save. I'm just going to attach a script to this. I'm just going to call this saved button. And all I'm going to do is get rid of that. I'm going to create a function on button pressed. Taking no parameters, and we're just going to call UI manager dot save data. And now we're just going to connect our UI manager save data function to our button on button pressed. Perfect. So let's save this. Oh, wait. Oh. Let's save this and let's test if everything works. So let's set our control to F and let's save. Now, theoretically, if I close this and open it, oh, I realized what I did wrong. I never called load control data from our ready function. Load control data. Oh, wait, whoops. That's not an ready function. Here we go. Load control data. Okay, let's start this. And now our button is saved. So we can hit G, save, load it again, G will be there. We can do this with more buttons. So if we want to duplicate this button, let's go back into GD script. And let's say this button want to be go. I don't know what that means. And let's add in a new input map for go. I'm just going to call this go, add, and this action name is going to be go. Save, load. Go doesn't have any functionality, so if I press I, hit save, load up, it's going to be saved, and it's going to update our project settings, and people are going to be able to control with different controls that they choose. That's all for this video. If you got anything about this, if you got anything from this, I'd appreciate a like. Thanks, guys. See you next time.